Hello and welcome back to Green Hill Garage. In today's video we're going to be doing a repair and revival of this Ford 8N. I'm not exactly sure what year it is, so can't really tell you at the moment, but we can identify the tag on it a little later. So this tractor was gifted to us as a high school graduation gift from a very good and long-time friend of ours. Really appreciate it. He bought this tractor probably around 8 years ago, I think now. Feels like it was yesterday, but it was a while ago at our auction. And he stored it here at our place, but he just doesn't have anywhere to store it, and he's getting kind of old, so he hasn't been able to work on it. So he's gifted it to us. Now, the story behind this tractor is it ran when he bought it, but it had a clicking noise in the valve train, so we're not exactly certain what that came from. Also had low compression on this rear cylinder, and as you can see there's some kind of JB Weld patch there. We're not exactly certain why that would be there on the outside of the block. Usually these crack right in the in between the cylinders is where they've cracked the most that I've seen. But yeah, it's all here. It did run about 4 years ago, but it's sat up here on our easement and it's kind of gotten grown in. So we're gonna go ahead today. We've got the gray ATV, got the dog, got a chain. We're gonna hitch this up, pull it out, and take it over to our shop. We also got a 6-volt battery for it. And the reason it quit running on us was the float got a pinhole in it and then sunk and flooded it. So we ended up having to drain out the gasoline out of the oil. We drained everything out, let it sit, cranked the motor over with no spark. Cleared everything out and then put fresh oil in it and stored it, so it shouldn't be stuck. It's got oil. We oiled up the cylinders a while back 4 years ago when we parked it. So without any further ado, we'll hitch it up and get it to our shop. All right, Jay. Look out, Cash. Slow down a bit, TA. I gotta be able to make this turn. Hey, TA. We're trying to go the other way. Not sure what Trey was thinking there. We put new tires on that ATV, so. Whoa. Good news is this tractor has good brakes, so I can stop old TA when he gets all wound up. I don't know if we'll fit. We will fit. Okay. Okay, guys, we got it in. We had a bit of a miscommunication. TA thought we were going clear down to the bottom of our dog leg and turning around, and this thing's narrow enough we could just go ahead and turn it onto our little bridge there. So this thing's 6-volt and it's got the original generator set up and everything. We had to put fresh oil in it when we flooded it out before we parked it. And I was just looking at this oil and it's still just as fresh as when we put it in, so that's good. What else can I tell you guys? So we have the 6-volt battery that came with this tractor, and we still have it. We've just kept trickle charging it every so often. So we're just gonna reconnect that battery. As you can see, we got an old wasp nest. Spiders have been making webs and whatnot in here. But before we can do any of that, we're gonna need to come around here, pull this carburetor and swap floats. because that was what originally did. This is a Marvel Shebler carburetor. I believe it's either close to or identical to the one that the TO30, Massey Ferguson TO30 had on it. Dad's been looking for one of those for a while. We haven't been able to find one without buying one new or a replica, because the one that he had on it was a Marvel Shebler, but he had the auxiliary tank in there inside of his TO30. And what happened was that auxiliary tank broke off, and it was just bouncing around inside, and it kept landing over the feed. And so when it did that, it would shut off fuel to the carburetor. And so he thought it was the carburetor at the time. So he replaced that Marvel Shebler for a Zenith, and that Zenith has never been right. So we've been hunting around for years trying to find that Marvel Shebler that he had. It was probably up on our summer property when he did that. Back in like 92, so it was a while ago, and we haven't had any success finding that. So that's one of the things about those Marvel Sheblers. They're a lot easier to work on than those aftermarket Zenith carburetors. If you get a carburetor, try to get the Marvel Shebler. So this one, as you can see, pretty small intake manifold compared to a lot of the automobiles we've been working on. These did not make a gob of power. They were only like 25 horsepower, somewhere in there, I think. And it's a flathead, straight four. They're real easy to work on. So first thing I guess we're gonna check is how this is gonna come off. I remember this one fought us. We pulled this before, and this thing fought us pretty heavily. So we're gonna pry this air duct off of here. I think it connects right there. So we'll just pull off that air duct, then we'll be ready to pull these two bolts of the carburetor and this feed. So I'll get that pulled and the linkage pulled, and we'll pull the carburetor. Okay guys, we got the carburetor off. Now we're gonna just take it and kind of look it over. I don't see anything obviously broken on it. The valve seems to, or the throttle plate seems to close nicely. Don't see any leaks there. Choke also is not stuck, so that's nice to see. This carburetor did not have any fuel in it. We intentionally drained it out before we parked it, so that's really going to help us by not having all that ethanol fuel stuck inside of this carburetor. So I ran out of WD-40 the other day, so I'm just using transmission fluid, but WD-40, PB Blaster, anything like that works really well. So there's just 4 flathead screws, and this is probably the most simple thing I've worked on in a while. We've been doing stuff like that S10. It's been, I wouldn't say complicated, but just long. And then I did that automatic transmission, that 4L60E. So this is kind of a nice break to go back to something simple, like what I used to do when I did mowers. So just pull these 4, and get yourself one of these good screwdrivers. These ones, they're supposed to be magnetic. This one doesn't really seem like it has much magnetism to it, but these are, they got a hardened blade on them. These ones you can get away with. They're pretty good, but as you can see, they don't have as square of a tip, so these ones are more likely to slip on you. When you get one of these, they don't slip near as bad, so you can put a lot more torque into them. Keep in mind, we pulled this carburetor before and pulled it apart before, probably about 5 years ago, so these screws are definitely not stuck in. So depending on how long of an 8-end had been sitting, if you buy one just sitting out in the field, then it could be much worse than this, and it probably would have gotten fuel left in the carburetor. So we got our screws pulled apart there. Just lift our assembly out. As you can see, it's got some rust in the bottom, but we'll just clean out, and it looks like surface to me. So we're going to want to clean out all our orifices. I think that's a word. All the little holes. Pull our pin here. Pull our float. As you can see, this is kind of rusty. I think what this did is this got some condensation in it. Even if it didn't have fuel, it still condensated. So this is the float that we're going to be replacing. I cannot remember exactly where the pinhole is, because this was 4 years ago. But what I do remember is that when we pulled this carburetor after it had completely filled the engine with gasoline, this float was full of gasoline. So that's what we're replacing today. But I'll go ahead and pull this Venturi out. I think we can lift this gasket off. I don't want to damage this gasket because I don't actually have another one at the moment. So we'll set that Venturi and gasket off to the side over there. So I'll go grab my carburetor cleaner. Here's our seat. Our seat actually looks pretty good. Nylon seat. So that wasn't the issue. I'll go grab my carburetor cleaner, guys, and we'll start cleaning this off. Okay guys, so I got this seat all cleaned off the bowl and everything. We're going to take some transmission fluid here out of this pump. Just kind of run it through and watch these jets. Now you can see when I pump into this jet, we have transmission fluid come out of here. This jet should feed off of into that hole down there. So that's where this needle here sits and controls your flow right off of there. So I cleaned up the needle. So now we got some transmission fluid in here. We'll just kind of let this transmission fluid soak. This stuff actually eats rust. It's not very fast at eating rust, but it does help. So we'll let this soak and sit off to the side. Now we'll grab our top plate here. We've got our pilot screw and whatnot. So we'll take our seat here, just pump in a couple of shots. It seems like it's a little sticky, so see, we can have feed, or we have feed now, so we're good through there. Now we'll run into our pilot and see if we get flow out of anywhere else. I'm not seeing flow. Okay, so we got flow out of there. Let's see. Okay, so we got fluid worked into our butterfly. Just let it kind of drain out and soak in everywhere. So we've got an air channel right up in here that transfers from the top. So we want to be sure that our jet is free, and it is. So you'll pump in through here. If we had I ran out of carburetor cleaner. I mean, there's some in the bottle, but it's not much. So we're doing this with some transmission fluid. But when you pump through this hole here, should be this hole just below the throttle plate is the one that feeds. So we're clear in all our passages. Our pilot's good, seat's good. So now we've got everything here. I'll grab some rags, wipe it down, and then we'll put our new, I've got a new needle somewhere, but I'll take a look. We got our new needle, and we'll put in our new float. So next thing we did is we just threaded in our needle here. So now we can take, well, this is adjustment needle. This is the actual fuel feed needle. So we'll take it and just drop it in. Then we'll take our new float, and we can take a look at our old float here, kind of see height wise what we need to bend this out to, and it looks like it's going to need a little bit of adjustment. So take this, just slightly bend it, slightly bend that one, and that gets us pretty close to our other one. This other one was working fine until it sprung a leak, so we're just going to bend it to the identical mark. Then we're just going to take our brass float, put our steel slide piece in, our steel pin, and then we'll check operation. Seems like it works good. Drop it down, and we can check to be sure our needle actually drops. You can see it's a little sticky. There we go. Okay, so now we can see that's actually working. So now we'll take our two pieces. We'll need to reconnect our Venturi and whatnot. Let's see. Oh, so before we do this, we're going to want to put our Venturi back on. So we'll take our gasket and Venturi here. Just kind of slide them on. Take that. That looks good right there. And let's see, we want to be sure our gasket is in the right spot, and it is. Alright, so we've got it faced the right way. Now we'll take our float, put our pin in, or there's a hole. Then we'll take our bowl, just fit the bowl. Which way is that? Okay, that's gonna fit like so. Just slowly lower it on. It's gonna go off just a touch. Okay, so we gotta line up that needle with that hole right there. So you want to just slide it on, and it should hold in place. And we can hear that our float is actually moving, but it doesn't feel like it's moving quite enough. So we'll pull that out again and readjust that float. Just bend that down just slightly. These aftermarket floats are a little different, I guess, than the original, because that original fit better. Alright, so now we'll just do what we did again. Find our needle, slide it on. That needle's hard to see. Take it. Okay, there we go. Then we'll just take our 4 screws, drop our 4 screws in, and we're going to call it for this video once I get these screws in. For this segment, I should say, because we got to go on in. We're around the town we got to make. So I'll put these 4 screws in, and then we'll show you guys once we get this on the tractor how to adjust it. Okay guys, so this tractor, since we're not 100% certain on the float, it's always a good idea to put a screwdriver or something to get basically a drain here, so if this carburetor does flood, instead of filling up this bowl and going all the way up through the intake and into the engine, it'll just fill up the bowl and then drain out of here, and then we can see that and correct that problem before it persists any longer. So I'll turn on the fuel here and we'll see if it works. Alrighty guys, we got the carburetor tested. I went ahead and had that in there and I turned on the fuel, saw no leaks, so we pulled that screwdriver out and tightened down our clamps here. Air cleaner's all good. I suppose we probably should check this oil. I know it's new when we last put it, but we should probably check it because this air cleaner, wasps and whatnot could probably get in it. So we'll check that. Choke lever works. We want to be sure that actually works. Then we can see our throttle is actually moving. So everything's working as it should carburetor wise. So I just hitched up our battery. It's 6 volt and this is 6 volt positive. So positive actually runs to the frame on this tractor. It's 12 volts or usually negative. 12 volt negative ground system. This is a 6 volt positive, and that's because the positive side runs to the frame. A little backwards, and you got to be careful if you haven't worked on one of these 6 volt systems. Yeah, so that just runs down the solenoid, and then the solenoid runs off a key, bumps that starter there. So I've got to go find the key. This little ignition switch actually only controls spark. This is our starter switch, and this starter switch is a neutral safety switch. Basically, it won't, if the thing's in gear, it won't allow this thing to start. So, yeah, that's that. On the TO30, they actually have an internal switch. The 6 volts TO30s do. There's a switch and an S instead of, because this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. On the TO30s, the shifter's here in the center, and it's actually got an S on it. It looks like a 5, but it's actually an S. And what that is it's a starter button, so you would just pull the gear shift and bump it, and that would start it, and that would guarantee that you were not in any other gear in the transmission. That was their idea back in the day. But yeah, I've rebuilt with my dad a TO30 hydraulics setup. They're very similar to these 8Ns. Basically, there's a little switch, and this is not live. So you have to push in the clutch and then just push this little lever down here. Down is engaged, up is disengaged, and that runs your hydraulic pump, and your hydraulic pump is tied directly to your PTO here. So when you're running the PTO, your hydraulics are always on when the PTO is on. So like when you're the hard part with these is when you're running like a brush hog or something, say, and you want to lift it just a little bit. Well, the problem with the brush hog is that it'll turn the blades when you try to lift. So if you hit something and you want to try to just lift it up, that's not going to happen. You got to back the tractor out far enough away and just drag the brush hog, because the blades will spin if you try to just pick this up. Not horribly crazy about it, but it's worked fine. It's basically the only tractor design I've ever brush hogged with, actually. I've done a few newer tractors to brush hog, and they're much better, largely because the TO30 and the 8N share a really high first gear. So for brush hogging, their first gear is actually a little fast for brush hogging, but for stuff like just pulling a 3-row spring shank marker, we've got some really rocky soil up at our summer pasture. These little 8Ns do pretty well. Sheet metal on this is pretty good. It's got some chips, some flaking paint, but overall I think it's pretty good. Tires, the fronts are a little weather checked and they got some cracks in them. These rears are in really good shape. These are set of good years. I believe they're either a 12, let's see, we can find it. Actually, sure, 12.4 by 28. And these tires have lots of tread on them. Goodyears, you got to watch your Goodyears. Goodyears really tend to sun crack worse than any other brand I've ever seen. We prefer Firestones, but they're real expensive, so I'm not replacing tires that don't need replaced by any means. This will be a really good tire for this. These little tractors, they're very handy for tight spaces. You can get them into a lot of places. We do a lot of blade work. They're really handy in the winter for pushing snow. We don't really get a lot of snow, but up on our summer pasture, it's around 7,000 feet of altitude, so everyone up that general side of the mountain has these kind of size tractors, TO30s, 8Ns, 9Ns, 2Ns. So yeah, a whole bunch of these small tractors. So we're gonna let this battery charge a little bit here, and then we're gonna try to turn this sucker over and see if we got any spark. So I'll just clean up the tools and we'll let that charge. Okay guys, so it's been about 10 minutes and we've been letting the battery charger charge. So we're gonna go ahead and crank this over and see if we have any spark. Now, I think since what I'm gonna do, since I did turn this over by hand and it felt really good, we're just gonna crank it over and see if it lights off. And if it doesn't light off inside of a short period of time, then we'll pull one of those spark plugs and see if it sparks. So I'll set you guys up and we'll see if she'll fire. Oh, the battery acts like it's pretty dead. No. We're gonna have to let the battery charge a little longer. It's acting like it's pretty dead. We'll let it charge and then we'll come back in a little bit. Alright guys, it's been about 30 minutes waiting on the charger. And we'll see if we get any better results. I'm gonna open up the door. Yeah, you can crack open those doors. Nope, just not cranking long enough. So I guess what we'll do is we'll pull spark plugs and check to be sure we got spark. Alright guys, we're gonna try again. guys, we got it running. See if it'll idle down here. As you can hear, we got kind of a misfire going. Not sure where that miss is, but it's an erratic misfire. So now, I guess I'll start adjusting that carburetor. I'm gonna have to set you guys down, but yeah, we got it running. So I got it adjusted. Basically this little pilot screw here wanted to be turned all the way in. It's not happy trying to run any wider out. It's still a little rich, looks like, on our main screw here. So take our main, turn it in just a little. See how our exhaust cleared up? Well, I don't know if you could see that from here, but exhaust cleared up. This leak out here is just where I spilled some coolant and I was filling this up. This thing was about half a gallon low. It didn't go into the oil, so I'm not certain where that half a gallon went, but that leak is just from what I spilled, so don't worry about that. We'll hop on here, see if we have any hydraulics. I checked our hydraulic fluid's full, so. Look at that. We have hydraulics. So we got 3-point, we got PTO. Got oil pressure. That's about right for idle. 25 pounds is about what these will make for idle at like 600 RPM or something. These idle pretty low. So yeah, we're getting like 30 pounds. Generally 10 pounds per 1,000 RPM is sufficient for most engines. So this is well within what we need it to be as far as oil pressure. So let's see if it'll back out for us. Be sure we're clear. Give it a little more RPM. Got a little bit of a misfire, so we're gonna need to figure out what that is. Let's try second gear. That's third. Doesn't want to do second. Try third then. Yeah, it seems like it's running pretty nice, aside from that miss. So we'll just need to pull in the shop here and maybe go over the spark plugs, because I think there's probably one, maybe a little foul, check the distributor. Yeah, it idles pretty nice, so we'll just go ahead and shut it off, let it cool down, and then pull those spark plugs and see what we have. So guys, I pulled the spark plugs and I couldn't find anything wrong with them other than this engine's running a little rich, so I made a carburetor adjustment. Here at idle, you can kind of hear it's still coughing a little, but overall it runs really good at high RPM. There's no miss at all at the higher RPM. I'm not quite certain what that is, but I messed with the carburetor and this is as good as it gets. We're turned all the way in on our pilot, so this is basically as good as it gets. I'm hearing a little valve chatter. I'm not sure if you can hear that or not. So we may need to adjust the valves, but we got to pull our big tractor. It's 2705. The story with this is the power shift has gone out in it, and so we were just using it with the mid-range gears because they're just a direct drive. But then it blew out a hydraulic sensor, so I limped it over here, but if we start it up, it'll drain all of our hydraulic fluid out. So we're going to unhitch it off of our disc. It's the same disc we had in the disking video at the M. We'll just unhitch this, pull this tractor out of the way. I haven't decided where we're going to park yet, but we'll use the little 8N. So this is going to be it for this video, guys. Again, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, let us know in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe to our channel for more. I think we're going to keep this little 8N. We may sell it a little bit further on. We'll let you know if we do, but at the moment we're not in any desperate need to sell it. And we think we may be able to fire up a business with brush hogging or blading or something with it. It's a pretty handy size. We can load it on a trailer on the back of our truck pretty easily. So again, thank you all for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like, leave a comment, and you all have a great day.